Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed your lunch break. I'm very happy to invite you today to join us for the Financing the Just Transition and Coal Phase-Out panel. I think it's often one of the most anticipated panels of such conferences because we all are here to get things done and to move to the investments and implementations of the projects. I'm very delighted to have with me an incredible panel today with very diverse representations, so I'll introduce them in just a second. You all met me yesterday. I'm Anna. I work for the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in the energy transition team. And together with me today, I have, how do we start this? So I have Marcin Jamiołkowski right next to me. He is the head of Financing Sources Coordination Team in the National Fund for Environmental Protection and Water Management in Poland. So you already met him as well, and Marcin has very big experience with the funds and fund management in Poland, which I think would be very beneficial for our region. Next, we have Hubert Strauss, who is the lead regional development economist at the European Investment Bank, who also has very significant experience working on the Just Transition mechanism in the European Union, as well as co-authoring the Just Transition approach for EIB Global, which he will share with us today. Next, we have Nevena Smilevska, whom you also probably all know from very insightful questions from the audience. Nevena is working for Bankwatch, and she is the regional Just Transition coordinator, and she works a lot on the financing aspects as well of Just Transition and has been a very strong advocate in this field. Going further, we have Kazagić. I hope I didn't destroy your name there. So Anes has had a very long career at the Elektroprivreda in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he is currently serving as the head of the strategic department and has very extensive experience also working on just transition and decarbonization planning at EPBAH. So we are really looking forward to hear his views on the topic. Going next, we have Jelena Miloš working at the DG NEAR and really focusing on the climate and environmental issues in Western Balkans with very long career focusing on these issues and really bringing quite a lot to the table in terms of the knowledge. And last one in the audience, but not least, is Stefan Kostovski, EBRD regional banker, working on the energy sector and on a lot of policy and just transition initiatives as well. We also have Borys Karpus joining us online. You will probably see him in a second. He is the mayor of Novovolynsk. He has been with us yesterday here in the audience, but unfortunately had another engagement. So he'll be joining us online. And he's been the mayor for several years, really focusing also on this subject, as he is a mayor of one of the coal mining towns in Ukraine. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And we are really hoping to have a very insightful panel. I would like to ask my dear speakers to limit their interventions to 3 to 4 minutes maximum, because it will be quite tight. But with this, I would like to turn to Nevena. So Nevena, you have been a very active advocate for just transition in the Western Balkans and beyond. And in particular, in your work, you focus quite a lot on the financing aspects and advocating for the Just Transition Fund for the region and a lot of other financing instruments like that. So perhaps we should start with you and ask you, what kind of needs do you see for just transition financing in the region, and how do you see the prospects of that developing?
Thank you very much for this question. So yes, I'm aware that the mention of a fund is difficult, because particularly there is because no one is certain what is the amount that is needed for this transition and what it needs to be used for. At present, we are mostly not certain of that. So to tap into a bit into how much the platform for coal regions in transition for the Western Balkans and Ukraine addressed not knowing what the fund needs to be used for, I wrote a briefing lately analyzing the effectiveness of the platform. So I will send this briefing next week when it is published on our website to everyone in this panel, and everyone who is interested in the audience can check it on our website at bankwatch.org. This briefing is intended to help in designing the forthcoming instrument that will replace this current platform under which we are operating now. So to reply to your question, I will start with the gaps. Currently, what I see in my work is two major gaps. One is the gap between documents and action, and the other gap is the gap in ambition between countries. So the first gap I will illustrate through my own country, North Macedonia. And in North Macedonia, as you have heard, we are the front runner. We have all the necessary documents. We have the first NECP, we have a great energy strategy, we even have a just transition roadmap, so we have everything. From that point of view, we are ready to transition towards a clean energy sector. However, on the ground, there is no action. No one is ready to publicly say the words, the power plants will close in public. No one says that. So this is one of the gaps. The gap in ambition between countries and the work on and I have to say that the work of the platform over the last 3 years really crystallized this gap. Is related to differences in narrative. So, for example, Serbia and Kosovo, they do not show a real intention to phase out coal based on what we see in their documents. The dates are ranging between 2050 and 2060. So this is way too late considering the climate emergency that we are in. So on the other hand, the gap here is that North Macedonia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, there we see movement either on the national or the local level. And these two gaps, they can be only solved with money. So, okay. The platform did what could be done in the 3 years that it operated, and now we have different needs between the countries. It is much clearer what each country needs now. So this brings me to the use cases that you mentioned in the questions. And the first use case is detailed planning of the transition on the local level. So this is happening in North Macedonia to a certain extent with the implementation, with the drafting of the implementation program of the climate investment funds accelerating coal transition funds that we got. But this needs to be much more clear. So when I say much more clear, this needs to be to the level of each region having a detailed plan, something like a territorial just transition plan equivalent. And then the second use case is selecting and maturing flagship projects. We keep hearing the financial institutions and the European Commission that they are ready to finance. Yet municipalities or coal regions, they do not have ready-made projects to offer for financing. So the problem in relation to this is that the general practice is you wait for the money to appear and then you see what you can use it for. But this cannot work. And we had a great example of coal regions needing to know what they need to be done and then seeking funding for it in the mayor of Živinica. So he had really a vision of what to do. So unfortunately, this version of the platform, as well as it operated during the three years, it did not support other mayors in developing visions like that. So a recommendation for the next period is to work directly with each region and support it technically and to some extent financially in developing projects that would be funding in the forthcoming period. So if we do have some just transition fund post-2028 with the new multi-annual financial framework, everyone will need to know what to fund already. So we cannot decide in 2028 when the fund appears what we want to fund. Otherwise, as experience shows, the funds will not appear if we do not know what to do. So to sum up, The gap in ambition requires money to be addressed. The gap in not having plans requires technical and partially financial assistance to be addressed. And they need to come in the reverse order. So first, the technical assistance, and then a just transition fund for implementing projects after we have decided what flagship projects we need. And to add, any new instrument supporting the just transition in the Western Balkans needs to work on these two gaps in addition to all that were mentioned in the panels. Thank you. I'm aware I got more time, but thanks.
Thank you so much, Nevena, for that excellent intervention. And I think it's really important highlighting the elements of the project preparation and the needs to support that as well before we move on to large-scale financing and really, working with that ambition that we have here in this room present today. So with that, I would like to move on to Hubert. Hubert, EIB has been a very active player on just transition in the European Union, being one of the lead implementing partners of the just transition mechanism. So what kind of experience can you share with us from the EU and also bring that into the context of the region? So I know that you have been working quite actively as EIB on the global approach for just transition and just resilience. If you could tell us how that squares with your work on GTM and how that applies to the region. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much, Anna. So as you may know, the EIB is supporting all three pillars of the just transition mechanism inside the EU, has been doing so for the last 2 years. And so in taking stock of this experience and also taking inspiration from the EU legislative framework, we have now built a new approach to just transition and just resilience for our operations outside of the EU. And in one sentence, what EIB Global seeks to support outside of the EU are relevant investment projects supporting the most vulnerable territories of countries with a clear intent to decarbonize their economies. So those territories that are most affected by the decarbonization itself. I will get to the types of projects we may support in the next round, but let me make a few points on the. So it's a three-pronged concept: vulnerability, intent, relevance. Let me make a few points on vulnerability and intent. What we have in mind are coal regions in phasing out mode and territories overly dependent on carbon-intensive energy and manufacturing production. In the Western Balkans and the Ukraines, these regions have been clearly identified. While not all your territories and all your regions have fully fleshed out territorial just transition plans yet, your active participation on this platform over the past 5 years and the fact that you aspire to become EU members leaves credibility to the claim that the transition is underway, that it has at least started. So we are glad to announce that we are able to support just transition projects in all coal regions of this platform. Further, we will support just energy transition partnership countries of the partnership countries with whom the EU has signed a partnership, notably South Africa, Indonesia and Vietnam. Our EIB global approach to just transition and just resilience will be published in a few days and presented at COP28. So our support is now entering phase 1, which will last at least 2 years, and after which we intend to broaden the set of countries in which we can support the most vulnerable regions. Let me stress 2 main differences with our inside EU approach. The first is the EIB global approach explicitly includes a notion of just resilience. This refers to climate adaptation projects that specifically address the needs of most vulnerable groups of people or places that are most heavily impacted by climate change or by climate change adaptation policies. And the second obvious difference is that outside of the EU, the starting point is a little bit more complicated in the sense that we don't have a fully fleshed out legislative framework and general support budget like in the EU. So we come with our own approach, which is closely aligned to the MDB high-level principles on just transitions, which we jointly published 2 years ago. but we are still a bank. So we need to reach out for partners. And so we have two main challenges that we need to join forces with you to overcome. The first is crafting a just transition strategy that is built around a national consensus of coal exit and decarbonization, because there cannot be a just transition if the transition isn't there. And I think North Macedonia is, despite all the criticisms, a positive example in this case. And the second is that mobilizing resources for investment grants and technical cooperation and advisory is very important to stimulate demand for just transition projects and to cover the financing needs. On this aspect of technical advisory, the joint action to support projects in European regions, also known as JASPERS, is a positive example. JASPERS has been active in Western Balkans since 2013 under a seamless suite of mandates from DG NEAR to provide advisory support to help beneficiaries prepare and implement infrastructure projects in line with EU requirements and international best practice. Under its current IPA 3 mandate, JASPERS is available to help translate the policy framework and priorities of IPA 3 into concrete, bankable, and mature investment projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hubert, for your intervention, as well as for highlighting the differences between the GTM in the EU and outside, and especially for bringing the attention to the resilience aspect of things, because I don't think that this has been mentioned throughout the 2 days of the conference, and it's really important, in particular in the context of Western Balkans, with the hydrological variability and the impacts on the hydro assets that the climate change is having. So with that, I would like to turn to Anes. Anes, you've been quite a big champion of the just transition work in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and through my work I work quite a lot with energy utilities in the region, and it has been quite pleasant to see the progress that EPBH has been making in terms of the decarbonization planning and in terms of the focus on the strategic workforce management as well for the transition. So could you share a little bit with us your experience, what you're doing on this front, and how you're also looking into the role of internal carbon pricing in this, in all of this process? Quite a big one for you.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you, organizer, for inviting me and give me opportunity to say some words about our experience as a utility from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Coming to your question regarding the planning of our energy transition in the company, let's say we started 10 years ago after we completed the first round of modernization of coal-based power plants. Then we focused on the development of our renewable energy projects. It was in 2014 when we drafted our first long-term plan covering the time frame until 2035 in that time, because EU power perspectives also focused on that year in that time. And yes, we declared in that draft high ambitions in development of our renewable projects, mainly focused on hydropower plants, wind parks, and biomass. That was 10 years ago. And what we have done in the meantime, we commissioned one wind parks and put in line some other wind park projects that should be soon will be in phase of realization. We also have started to use the biomass co-firing in our cogeneration units in CHP Tuzla and CHP Kakanj, but we failed with these hydropower plants. Unfortunately, we didn't build any of the hydropower plants, and I need to say that we don't have to forget the hydropower plants as an important technology in the future power mix, because of their role for balancing and regulation service for intermittent energy power resources, but also because of the high capacity factor that can in a fast way actually cover or compensate the energy that we are going to lose from the coal-based power plants. That is what I wanted to emphasize here. So in the late 2010s, while price of carbon at ETS starting to grow suddenly, then we also started in our long-term projections to take into account carbon pricing effect on our portfolio and the long-term transformation of our power sector. We used different scenarios of projections of carbon pricing scenarios. And in fact, in that time, planning in our company became everyday activity. So that's also what I wanted to point out here. Planning is very important, everyday planning to respond to the very fast changes that are actually happened on the market. Of course, you need to have some dedicated people, also capacities who are going to work on the planning. Behind any plan, you need to have some concrete projects of renewable energy. We have plenty of the projects in different stages of development, preparation, and even today in construction phase for some our PV projects. And after that development, we need action. Actually, we need to start to build those projects. Of course, we need to provide financing. Many financial institutions recognized those our efforts and supported us in preparation and realization of all those projects. We have planned in our plan until 2050. In this decade, until 2030, to put into operation over 700 megawatts in PV projects, in wind parks, hydropower, and also to extend use of the sustainable biomass in our remaining cogeneration units. EBRD, KfW, and some also World Bank supported those our activities. Those activities are also focused in our core regions. We 3 years ago screened all land of our coal mines and recognized that many of those land is actually convenient for installation of PV projects. Also for plantation of the short rotation copies, we already started with those projects. We developed over 300 megawatts of PV projects that are today in different stages of preparation and construction. Also, we have started and we are deep in a test phase of plantation of short rotation copies, which can improve the local environment, local landscape, and also they represent a sink of carbon. And from the other side, they produce the biomass, which can actually replace a part of fossils which is used in the existing facility. So there is a double effect of the CO2 cut with that project. And we engaged a small part of the workers for the coal mines for those projects. And that's what we can do as a power utility to contribute in this for these models of renewables. But we are also facing today with some needs for transformation of our coal mines for also some other businesses which are not under our responsibilities. We need also for that purpose reskilling of the workers, trainings, also repurposing of the land. And actually I see and we see in our company that we need to use some dedicated funds for just transition for such parts of the projects, either if it is EU-based fund or national-based government state fund, whatever. But I need to say here that this uncertainty in the funding the projects of just transition actually slowing down the activities on the site. And as soon as we clarified the funding sources, I think that we could accelerate all the activities in the just transition. And at the end, I need also to say that in parallel with the energy transition of power sector, we are running also energy transition of the heat sector, because our cogeneration units deliver the heat for 3 big cities in the country, and the heat sector is equally important to power sector with the regard of CO2 cut targets. So we launched some projects for transition of that sector also, and EBRD already recognized those our efforts and supported us. This means implementation of the renewable models and involving into the district heating system, but also solutions for the thermal storage, both daily and seasonal. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you also asked for the internal carbon pricing.
But I think maybe we can take it in the
Thank you.
in the next round. Actually, I would perhaps like to pick up on this point. So I think you already mentioned it in your speech that EPBH has started to look into the implications of the carbon pricing on your financial models and businesses, and I know that you're also working on the development of the internal carbon tax. With this, I would actually like to turn to Marcin and to understand a bit more about your work. So yesterday we heard from you very provocative statements talking about the fact that the funding is already here. So I think what would be very helpful is if you could explain to us how to build on all of this. So we know that CBAM is coming, so Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism is coming starting from 2026. There might be exemptions, but it's going to come down eventually to the region. And a lot of the experts are going to be exposed to the carbon prices. And a lot of the countries at the moment are thinking of the development of their carbon pricing mechanisms and collecting those revenues. Could you share with us the experience of Poland on how you are using the carbon pricing and the polluter pays principle in order to set up these funds and to use the domestic revenue sources in order to finance just transition projects, and how you think this could be applicable to the Western Balkans and to Ukraine?
Yes, thank you for the question, for the invitation again. Hello, everyone. So yes, you already mentioned the main rule that we are based on, so the polluters pays principle. So if you will have in your mind some revenues that you can use on just transition, you should make sure that they are based on just approach, and make sure that they are based on polluters pays principles. So everyone who is paying fines and penalties for the using the environment should contribute to the needs that can you know, answer the needs of just transition. And in my opinion, that what is key to success is make sure that those funds are earmarked and can be used only for those purposes. For example, our revenues that comes from our state funding are completely independent from state budget, because all the ministers of finance are eager to take them to cover the gaps in the state budget. So make sure that those funds are completely independent from the state budget. When it comes to the ETS, well, yes, ETS is very important, and it will be more important. For example, right now we use the ETS through the modernization fund, but we are preparing another fund that will be even bigger than modernization fund, which will be the fund for energy transition, and it will be based on in plans for 100% of our auctions will be dedicated to create these funds, and again it will be those funds will be available only to energy transition projects. So you can do that for just transition projects. And of course, what we are trying to do when we have our funds in our disposal is to use them let's say, wisely to achieve as many effects as possible. So we have one program prepared for just transition. We, as a national fund, we are not, fortunately, we are not involved right now in distribution of just transition fund in Poland, because as is what said, it will be distributed through the local level, which is good, because as we already stated, that at the local, regional level, there is the best place to match the needs with funding. But we have one program prepared for just transition, and we want to through this program combine social effects and ecological effects. So on one hand, there will be support for reskilling the workers that are connected to the mining sector. On the other hand, we want to move them to the green sectors, especially renewables, and through funding the implementation of renewables, achieve the, first of all, production of renewable energy and of course CO2 emission reduction. So you have to think horizontal way, so try to achieve as many profits as possible when designing the instruments, but make sure those funds will be earmarked only for the purposes that you want to achieve.
Thank you, Marcin. I think this is a very relevant advice for a lot of people in the region, and we are already seeing some of the starts of those initiatives. So, you know, be that was EPBAH, be that was EPCG in Montenegro, who are also doing something a little bit similar in terms of looking into the revenues from coal activities and how to reinvest them into more sustainable models. So this is not something completely new for the region. The seeds are there, and there is a lot that can be done in terms of the scale up, and I think we can all benefit from looking at examples of Poland and how to do it domestically. With this, I would like to go to Stefan. So Stefan, I think North Macedonia again is a bit of a very used example during these 2 days, and we've been hearing a lot about, you know, this financing packages and all of this work that is ongoing. Could you tell us, please, a little bit more about how all of this started, perhaps, and how North Macedonia has arrived into this big scale-up platform type of a moment, and what kind of lessons learned could be used in terms of the financing for other countries in Western Balkans from that?
Thank you, Anna. So let's start 12 months ago. I was sitting on the very same panel, and at the time I was saying that we have ambitions document, and it's now time to get the donor funding in place, etc. So 12 months from then, I can proudly say that we've walked the walk and already have some evidence. So in April, the Just Transition Roadmap of North Macedonia was adopted. And this is not only just one more strategic document, it's a very, very important step that was done. In parallel, the EBRD helped the government of North Macedonia to apply for the Climate Investment Fund, Accelerated Coal Transition Program, which you've heard a lot. So I would just like to give you a couple of information about that. I think it is very convenient structure that help us develop, and I think that there are a lot of lessons learned for other structures that can and should be put in place going forwards. So Climate Investment Fund allocated to be yet finally approved $85 million concessional funding. So this is grant plus concessional debt funding. With the caveat that in order to get to approval, there needs to be an investment plan put in place. The EBRD is a lead IFI MDB working on this project, but together with the World Bank and the IFC. And this is a government-led process, so that's very important. So we are helping the government to set up this investment plan, which is very comprehensive, going much deeper into what was building up on the roadmap itself. It's now 120-page document. Very soon to be disclosed to the public for public consultations. It essentially goes into detail and specific projects. So the total amount that we are looking at now, we'll see where we get after the public discussions. It's about 600 million euros worth of projects and this is of course including the 85 million of concessional funding. So it's essentially looking into mobilizing MDB funding, but as well a lot of private funding as well. So this is very important part that private sector is going to play a very, very big role in this transition. This has to be taken in mind when we are considering this entire transition, how to mobilize not only donor funding, not only MDBs, but also private. So when we are looking at this climate investment fund, just so it includes energy projects, it includes energy efficiency, it includes people retraining, it includes a lot of investment in the development of the business sector in these two regions. So this is very much dedicated to this to the Pelagonia region. So not only Bitola, but a bit wider, and this is especially because of the business, and also the southwest region. So still 350,000 population, but good enough to pick up a nice investment plan to work on and develop. So we are looking at government approval quite soon for information, then discussion with the public, and very important part, the transparency throughout the process. We had 3 missions already discussing with all of different stakeholders to get their ideas, what's important in order to develop this project. And it will be, this investment plan, it will be eventually be to a final discussion very soon, now in December. But more importantly, even for us, so we understood that, okay, 600 million is not enough. Even in North Macedonia, it's small, but it's still not enough. So we offered the opportunity to the government to present a just energy transition investment platform nationwide to help them structure, design it, and present it now at COP28. There will be a joint declaration signed on the 3rd, together with other MDBs and donors, with whom EIB will co-sign us with us, that joint declaration. I'm happy to announce that the joint declaration was approved just today by the government. So we're kind of ready to sign this. And this platform is going to be nationwide. It's pretty much going to include all the same pillars, and the value that we are looking at is about 3 billion for the entire country. There will be a lot of work to coordinate all of this work with all of those donors which are willing and recognize the ambitions of the country to support these plans going forward, and then to develop and finance all of these projects one by one, all by 2030, which is the cutoff date for North Macedonia. So in summary, the lessons learned, that it's not only for this, it's pretty much for any project. So its starting point is, it's a good ambition that can be recognized and clearly defined. The second thing is to get proper plan with projects and structure of financing. And only this can be recognized by donors, by MDBs, by private sector, that this is serious enough and that they are willing and ready to commit funds. So in a nutshell, that's the formula for pretty much everything. It's not a rocket science that we see, but I would urge all other countries in the Western Balkan countries to, especially now when they're developing their NECPs, which we know the due date, June 2024, to rethink again their ambition, to think the actual costs of coal, to think of the timeline, and to think of the transition as an opportunity to improve and to grow their economies. Because 3 billion for North Macedonia, it's a huge amount. It's a huge opportunity. Delaying this opportunity is essentially delaying the growth of the economy. And I think that everybody should include this opportunity cost when they're doing the calculations for their ambitions, for their NECPs. So that is my message for the moment. Thank you. I'm willing, if anybody has questions, to go deeper about examples, type of projects that the platform is looking at. But obviously, this will be published, and everybody can have a look at this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Sounds like we're getting it done, but I think a lot of challenges ahead. So I don't think that we should be underestimating the amount of work that lays ahead of all of us jointly with the government on that front. So Jelena, with this, I would really like to turn to you. It sounds really like quite a lot is being done in the region at the moment, and I think we see tremendous amount of progress, even from last year when we were sitting here on the same panel. I think last year it was with Holger and having these discussions. So it seems the financing mechanisms, you know, the first projects and everything is finally starting to roll in the region. And of course, the European Union has been perhaps one of the biggest supporters and donors in the region, you know, be this via WBAF or through other programs. So what's next in store? Do we have anything else to expect from the Commission, or do you think that already with these initiatives, you know, we have everything covered and there is no need for kind of additional focus here?
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Anna, for that question. First of all, I think Holger would have been here, but we're quite busy now with development of a new initiative. Of course, the Commission wouldn't be the Commission. They always like to put in front of new proposals. And you might have heard that earlier this month, there was a proposal on the new growth plan and the reform and growth facility, which is really to help the growth, the economic growth of the region. And there's quite a few. You can read that these are all public documents. These are at now proposals by the Commission. Then that would have to be approved by the Council and the Parliament. But within that plan, there is quite a space for energy and decarbonization of energy markets. And then this would, of course, be based on the work that we've already been doing in the region with WBIF, with the energy support package. But we would like to make investments more strongly linked to reforms. So with the new growth plan, there is an additional funding that's available, and that would be in the order of 6 billion euro for the region, with 2 billion euro proposed of grants. And these would be conditional on reforms, which we are now kicking off and defining with the countries. And for the sector of energy and decarbonization in general, we would like to really see, I think Nevena put it earlier, that there is an ambition on these NECPs. So NECPs, it's the right moment, they're being developed, and it's not just plans, but there is clear perspectives on how countries plan to decarbonize and sort of set a timeline for this, including, of course, just transition. So that would be that's coming. So by early next year, or I think March or April, and the Western Balkans countries would have to come up with a reform agenda, and all of them have so far indicated that energy is a priority, so it's linked to the growth of their country naturally. So we'll see how this will change the game, or let's say speed it up, because we already have, like we said, like for example, Stefan had presented the North Macedonia story. WBIF does support there with energy investments, and we continue to do this. Also with the energy support package, we try and tackle energy poverty, and with the reskilling and the human capital development part, there I think we can do better. We do have some plans, some kind of cohesion-like programs for 4 of the countries that would look at green skills, that would look at reskilling and vocational training. But here, I think we need to do more from our side as well. But looking at our the ensemble of our support that has been up to date, and with this new growth plan, it's hopefully going to be a game changer for the countries, because we do really need to see ambition on the other side. So that's the big picture. And then the other part is we will continue with a more, let's say, implementing version of the platform that you have before you. There is a proposed project from IPA 24 that will be start implementation next year for the whole of the region. It's going to focus more on support to project preparation. Investments. So, you know, when we see, okay, the funding, it's not just the funding, it's also, we really need to see some projects behind it. So we continue with this technical support and more focus on connecting with local authorities because of the nature of just transition, as well as we also continue with the platform activities that we have now. So these are exchanges with the EU and within the region, also learning. So just to say that this is not going to end. There will be a little gap because this is the way we operate. So we hope to start implementation for the Western Balkans region to mid-2024, let's see. But just to say that this is only beginning. We're very at the beginning of this process, and there's quite a lot now to do in the next year, and hopefully we'll be happy like Stefan, who's seen progress in the last year. Hopefully we'll sit somewhere next year and take stock and see how it's advanced. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jelena, for that intervention. I think quite a lot of exciting news coming for the region from the European Commission, who is always a really tremendous supporter of these initiatives. I think one very important element that both you and Stefan have highlighted is that financing comes hand in hand with the ambition, and was really, you know, going for it and trying to really make those announcements and trying to make them credible, backed up with concrete investment ideas. And for that, I think there is quite a lot of the support available once that process is done. So with that, I would like to turn to Borys. Borys, you are the mayor of the coal mining town in Ukraine, and we have tremendous delegation here present today as well from Ukraine. Of course, due to the Russian invasion, the context in Ukraine is quite different from that in the Western Balkans. So how do you see all of these initiatives being applicable to you, especially in the context of Ukrainian reconstruction? And that's, of course, given, you know, for everyone's benefit. It's, of course, also given the fact that the Ukrainian government has recently reconfirmed the decision for the full coal phase-out by 2035, despite the war. So as a mayor of coal mining town, how do you see all of this working in Ukraine and in the reconstruction context? Дякую. And colleagues, turn on your headsets if you don't speak Ukrainian.
Доброго дня, чи чути мене добре? Анна?
Чути.
Дякую. Ну, перш за все, дякую організаторам за можливість виступити. Сьогодні вже в Мюнхені. Натомість дуже важливе питання для наших вугільних регіонів, яким чином буде відбуватися реконструкція і відновлення. Ну, перш за все, важливо зрозуміти, що для наших вугільних регіонів це будуть різні підходи і різні проекти, тому що є частина вугільних регіонів, які знаходяться в окупації, є частина, які знаходяться на лінії розмежування, є частина, які обстрілюються постійно. Ну і є частина, яка в тилу, тобто це Львівський і Волинський регіони, де, ну, якщо так можна вжити, відносно спокійно, хоча обстріл енергетичної системи стосується насправді всіх регіонів. Тому підхід має бути, ну, якби диференційований, я би це так сказав. Це перше. Друге, звичайно, що мають бути стратегічні документи. Вони вже готуються в рамках різних ініціатив, різних процесів. Тут, звичайно, варто згадати і проекти GIZ, які впроваджуються в Павлограді і Червонограді, в Мирнограді і Червонограді, звичайно. Ми доєднуємося теж нашим якби таким прибужанським Нововолинським мікрорегіоном разом з Нововолинською територіальною громадою Литовожем і Поромовим. І це перше, про що я хотів сказати, що це мають бути стратегічні документи. Далі, звичайно, нам необхідно шукати ресурси під це, і це складова завдання, яке складається з двох частин. Перше – це розвиток людського капіталу, для того, щоб можна було описати і впроваджувати ці проекти. І друге, звичайно, це сам ресурс. І це якби прямо пропорційна залежність якби прямо пропорційна, тому чим більше ми будемо вкладати в людський ресурс, тим вищого рівня і складності проекти ми зможемо реалізовувати. Ну, на сьогоднішній день ми вже готові, в принципі, до представлення різного роду проєктів. Чекаємо, зараз почався процес у нас з написання плану, Just Transition плану, якби, нашого регіонального. Вчора виступав заступник міністра, і він доповів про те, що робиться на рівні державному. В принципі, можна сказати, стверджувати, що на 80% у нас розуміння, бачення, логіка є. Звичайно, має відбутися коригування концепції, і це теж якби буде відбуватися в найближчому часі, це якби макрорівень. Але ще раз хочу повернутися до рівня муніципалітетів, що важливо для них. Це, звичайно, перш за все люди, навколо яких, в принципі, що відбудова, що трансформація вугільних регіонів, що будь-які інші процеси, які будуть відбуватися на наступних там кілька років, це буде навколо людей і людиноорієнтовано, тому що окрім завдання з трансформації вугільних регіонів, нам ще додається криза того, що люди виїхали, тобто міграційна криза, це перше. І друге, звичайно, це те, що не буде популяції, тобто демографічна криза. І от якби нам треба буде розв'язувати ці всі завдання і задачі, ось такого складного рівня. І ми про це все маємо думати, тобто про демографію, про міграцію і про справедливу трансформацію. Тому необхідно буде вкладати в людей, і, звичайно, шукати кошти будь-які, насправді, тому що нам треба і грантові, і ресурси, звичайно, якісь кредитні, там інші, тобто це все повинно бути в доступі, і для того, щоб можна було побудувати дійсно sustainable development, тобто сталий розвиток наших громад.
Дякую, пане Борисові, за вашу роботу попри війну по справедливій трансформації. I think it's very important that Borys has highlighted the role of the human capital development as well in all of this planning and preparation, be that with the war or without the war in the Western Balkans. And I would actually like to pick up on this for a second. Jelena, don't get too comfortable because the question is for you. You mentioned in your intervention this element as well, that perhaps more could be done on the human capital development aspect. How do you see the role of the human capital development and of the planning for just transition, so of the strategic documents? How do you see their role in this preparation for the financing applications and for the acquisition of funding? Because we often hear about the energy projects and other things. How about that element?
So there was, I think, an analysis developed from the platform where there is a focus on reskilling or kind of trying to look at what to do with the local population, which may not be, and that was to me a kind of surprising. We always talk about reskilling and retraining miners that are working in the that are working in the facilities, but it might not be as much of a need for reskilling than working with young people on sort of green jobs, green transition. And we don't even know the needs on this. We're a bit of we have a blind spot on what the needs are exactly for human capital development in these areas. Whether it's which population we're talking about. So with energy, it's a bit easy. We know the numbers, and it's quite good. It's not good, but it's on its way, let's say. But with human capital development, very important in terms of outlining exact needs. Following so anyway, but on the other part is you mentioned planning. This is where these needs would have to be defined better. So it's quite relevant for us to work based on really plans that are realistic and they are not just ambitions, but they are let's say elaborated well enough with a perspective for time and investments.
Thank you so much for highlighting that, Jelena, and I think a lot has been said over the past days as well on the planning in other regions as well, be that from the work that GIZ is doing in Ukraine, in Chervonohrad, or be that as well, with the Montenegro's just transition roadmap being prepared with support of UNDP, our support in Serbia as well. So I think quite a lot is going on, and I think one of the messages is as well to get those plans and those roadmaps ready to cover that human capital development aspect as well, and to attract financing for those elements too. Over this day, I've been approached by quite a few people in the corridors asking me, how do you start applying for the financing and how do you actually get that support? And those questions are coming really from the region, be that from the municipalities, from energy companies, from the national governments and others. So I think it would be important to clarify it. And I'm going to turn to the two IFI representatives here on this panel, so to Hubert and to Stefan. But maybe let's start with you. If I am a mayor, if I am someone from the energy company or from the national government and I have a project in mind, how can I come to EIB? What kind of projects do you support? How do I start on that?
Thank you very much, Anna. And first of all, you would contact our fabulous lending people, such as Maria Lena, who is here in the room. And because I'm from the projects directorate, I'm second row, so I can tell you what kind of projects we can support. This is more my turf. And of course, over coffee, we can discuss let's say, which financing products exist. But I couldn't agree more with you, Stefan, and also with Jelena, that what we need to support in the most impacted territories is not just energy projects. Successful transitions are those that manage to integrate a number of transitions at the same time in a meaningful strategy. The obvious energy transition, the economic diversification challenge that leads to the creation of new value chains, building on strength of the region, historic strength of the regions, the social skills and labor market transition, the environmental challenge, and this we have heard earlier, the importance of repurposing the land and leaving behind land that is actually of ecological value, and only then it can become of economic value again. And finally, capacity building, technical support, and cross-cutting activities. So we are talking of a very, very broad range of types of projects that can be bundled either in monosector projects, such as a renewable energy project, or multi-sector framework loans, where a city or a region would bundle small investment schemes in various sectors that can be sustainable transport, that can be energy efficiency, district heating, renewable energy, environmental rehabilitation. One of our best projects is in East Germany, Braunkohlesanierung Lausitz, where we cleaned the soil after lignite mining. We co-financed this project, and it has been reforested and is now a tourism hub for short distance tourism. So there's many things we can support, and as mentioned before, Jaspers is an interesting player when it comes to preparing projects. So under the newly signed IPA 3 agreement, the policy framework also covers areas highly relevant for just transition and just resilience, including energy, environment, and climate resilience, as well as human development and education. So in the energy sector, for instance, Jaspers has been advising Kosovo and Serbia on their national climate and on energy efficiency aspects. We are currently intensifying our outreach to further technical assistance partners and financial partners to help build a significant project pipeline and at relative attractive conditions. And I think here a look back into the European Union is interesting. You mentioned Western Macedonia before. You might know that the EIB has a socio-economic transformation project there that will receive a grant under the public sector loan facility of the EU. This is pillar 3 of the just transition mechanism. And why am I mentioning this? I'm mentioning it because you don't always need to ask for grants that would cover 80% of investment costs, because usually you have a mix of revenue generating and pure public sector projects. So it's a mix. And if you use the money, I mean, for projects that generate own revenues, you don't need 85% grants. You can need 10-15% grants to make them viable. And this is why I'm saying we don't have as much money as inside the EU, but if we get to secure, like you did in North Macedonia with the CIF funding, a little bit of it can act like a yeast in the project. Many thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Hubert. Turning over to Stefan, so same question. If we have project ideas coming from the ground, how can they come to EBRD? What kind of things could you support?
So it's always important to have some sort of a plan. So this plan for CIF, it's going to be government approved. All of those projects will be included in the single project pipeline list, and it will be out there for the generation company, for the TSO, for the municipalities, for everybody to know with specific priorities, timeline, etc. So let's say the TSO says, okay, we are ready to go and do these grid investments, and we'll roll out the feasibility studies, ACRs, and then do the standard financing. We'll take the allocations from the CIF and build on that the project. So essentially, we see the approval somewhere end of January, beginning of February. Once we have that, we're pretty much ready to roll those projects. When it comes to private projects, there is really no limit. So as long as this is earmarked in those regions, this will help develop those. So our colleagues are already starting to work on credit lines with existing with local private banks, starting to design the projects. When these funds are available, they can roll out those. So it's it is a parallel process. So projects are essentially being developed as we speak, stage by stage, like any other project. So it's simple as that.
Thank you for that, Stefan. So what I'm hearing for a practical summary, go to EIB loan officers, or Jelena, wave your hand, to the regional bankers in EBRD, Stefan here, or as well to the World Bank colleagues who are also sitting there with Wolf. If you have any ideas and projects, come to them during the coffee break, brainstorm, discuss, and then get in touch afterwards to get that support in project preparation and get things moving. So with that, I would actually like to turn to the questions from the audience. Wow, wow, wow. All right, let's start here in the front. Gentlemen, please, from Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you. Alexander Novikov, International University of Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And my question to, first of all, to Anes Kazagić, but if somebody else would care to answer, I would really appreciate it. So, see, today and yesterday we mostly talking about just transition in a sense of transition from coal to renewables. And we're talking about just transition, like how it just for the coal region mostly. But I hardly hear, and we kind of assume that renewable part will be just by definition. And as told, like in Bosnia and Herzegovina, there is a huge impact to transfer to hydropower, which has a huge history of injustice, especially large projects about them, which is like also like not totally carbon neutral, by the way. And also small hydro is also like not free from unjust problems. And in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it was like huge projects to provide incentive for small hydro projects, which has resulted basically in destroying hundreds of rivers. It does not contribute to transition to energy mix, and basically resulted in huge public outrage who view it as unjust totally. And basically it's resulted in total ban of small hydro project effectively in Bosnia and Herzegovina right now, if somebody don't know. So my question is like, does anybody include the second part of the renewables and their calculations, their financial calculations in the just transition? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very good question, and I'm glad that you are coming from the academic association. Yes, you are right, and I can agree actually completely with you. We also should take care about just transition on the side of the renewables. I can agree also with your comment about hydropower plants and their impact on the society, particularly to the local communities. That's why we need to openly discuss about all these projects, all these scenarios, even about every single projects. They all have their good sides, but also they have some not so good sides, and we need obviously to find some compromises here. That would be my try to respond to this question about the influence of the renewables to the environmental and social impact. Developing all those renewable projects, we are obliged, and we are really doing the environmental and social impact assessment, trying to respond to also to your specific question. Maybe it is not enough. Maybe we should go deeper into on the level of the community and have open discussion about each single projects, and that would be actually, I think, right approach.
Thank you so much for that, Anes. Let's take more questions because we have quite a lot of interest, and if you can keep them short, it would be fantastic. A lady in pink there, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Ayla from Bosnia, city of Zenica. So my question would be regarding the technical assistance and funding opportunities in relation to this process for the Western Balkan countries. So Jelena already mentioned the growth funds, 6 billion euros in loans and 2 billion in grants. So my question is, are we going to use the existing platforms such as WBIF or something else to distribute this money? And also you mentioned that we could expect this end of 2024, so we have a gap of 1 year. So can you just elaborate a bit on that? And also maybe just for IFRs, just to like give your views, could like WBIF be used as a good example for the future projects in this process? Thank you.
3 questions there. Jelena, would you like to start?
Remind me if that those are very important questions, Ayla. So for the growth plan, the funding, there will be, it's 6 billion euros, and roughly it will be distributed across the countries according to GDP per capita. There are some formulas, and half of it will be channeled through the budgets, so budget support, let's say, and the other half would be channeled through the WBIF, so the Western Balkans Investment Framework, continuing to support investments that we've started, with a caveat that we will not be supporting so much renewable energy generation projects to the extent they are revenue or generating, so we would be having selective support of those. For example, balancing or rehabilitation of existing hydropower plants. That still stays because it's an important part of the energy mix of the countries. So this is the big discussion now on the growth plan. And Western Balkans Investment Framework, there's, by the way, a call for applications open now. So with the existing funding, so that's one part. Now on the project preparation with the Western Balkans Investment Framework, we do have the investment project infrastructure project facility, project preparation. We have Jasper. So there are all of these project preparation facilities that are already existing, they're not going anywhere, but with a concrete sort of just transition. So this platform, as it is now, we continue or we start end of next year. Not to say there's other support available. So it's this part. So let's say the continuation or the successor to this program for the Western Balkans would continue at the end of next year. But the other is gone, and I'm sure EBRD and EIB colleagues, they know more than me. So.
Thank you so much for that answer. Stefan, Hubert, any views on WBIF? I think the question was. Maybe just keep it 2 sentences.
No, WBF still exists. It's still being used for development of projects as we did. Indeed, there are some specific parts. So PV plants really doesn't make sense there to be supported anyway. But I know that innovative solutions, floating PV, something that adds a bit more value or can be seen and supported, especially storage. So where the gap is needed. So we'll be using those. I see as having especially about this platform, like having an earmark, which is called Just Transition, which help us identify and finance project and in seeking of funding for project development, sometimes where applicable investment grants as well. So all of this structure, it will be a bunch of different structures, but it is important to identify the just transition, because there are so many other initiatives. It's not only energy. I mean, we're all talking only about energy, but there is school, there's infrastructure, there's so many other things. So there are other groups of people looking for funding for some other reasons. But it is now having this in place will help us pushing this project and mobilize financing when available.
I'm not an expert on the Western Balkan Investment Fund, to be honest, but what I hear is that when you have a bespoke just transition strategy or project or program in mind, an advice I could give you is to contact the Jaspers network directly, and they will advise you on this. What I've heard that for just transition it's IPA 3. That's the information I received.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions in the audience? Gentleman over there, please. That's you, yeah.
Alexander Kaučnik, coal miner. I come from Slovenia, from Jelena, and I speak in Croatian. malo prije sam čuo da će biti jedna duga pauza od skoro godine dana i kao rudar i kao sindikalista iz Slovenije, iz Velenja, znam da je to predugo za kolege iz Balkana. Sad je to najpotrebnije da se što brže prilagode. Ta pravedna tranzicija izgleda da neće biti pravedna samo za rudarske regije. To je moje pitanje. Zašto toliko dugo da se čeka?
Yeah, please go ahead. I think you already addressed it in the last round. Let's.
Just to say, so on the platform, the proposed platform, this was meant to be funded from IPA 23, which was going to be which is, let's say, operational now. But IPA 23, as funding, was reallocated to the energy support package. So for the whole of the region, there was immediate support to address the energy crisis measures resulting from the Russian aggression on Ukraine. So we are facing a bit of prioritization exercise where we had to really work on this. Not to say, again, there is other means of support that can be provided, what you were saying for Jaspers, other projects that are working nationally, but the platform, the regional platform as such, we will have to wait. So hence that's the break, is we do have priorities that we have to juggle. And this one was also around energy, so that's...
Thank you, Jelena. I think that's an important message, that the activities are not stopping. It's just that there is a small break in the platform functioning, but everyone is still carrying on the work. Any more questions? Maybe anything from online audience? No? Okay. I think you were first. Yes, lady in pink, in front.
Hello. My name is Natasha Kovacevic. I'm coming from Bankwatch network, and I'm campaigner for district heating sector. So just shortly to say that we just now finalized one of the studies on scaling up district heating across the Balkans with one survey which was 23 towns involved, and one of the main obstacles which were there are about capex costs, like main cost just to do identification of the sources, but then also do real technical studies, for example, for geothermal researching. So, you know, how to find those costs, to have it as first, if it's possible, as a grant, you know, at least in some bigger portion, because we are sometimes speaking also about small size communities and mid-sized communities, and one of the great examples actually is about bonding investments, and this is something that also Bankwatch encouraged, but still how, and you know, we need to have these tailored investments, and how we actually help the communities to have this kind of bonding investments across the smaller towns so no one is left behind. Thank you.
Very important question. So Hubert, I think you already said about Jaspers, so maybe over first to Stefan, and then Hubert, if you would like to add something.
So I don't know what size of projects you're talking about, but district heating, even if it's municipal, it's always big enough to finance. If we are talking about individual housing and then we have credit lines with the support of EU, with support of UNDP, with what we are building now with CIF, which can essentially, this is how we address through intermediaries, local financial institutions roll out, so those and support those smaller size tickets. So that's how it's done. But projects which are with the municipalities, usually we look at bundling up similar projects, and our experience is whenever we get to analyzing the project, we find out that there is actually this usually not the project cost, it was underestimated most of the time. Many times there are related investments that needs to be put in place, and this is usually scaled up. So for instance, the investments in the industrial zone in Bitola, which were identified and mentioned to us by the by the municipality of Bitola, by the mayor. At the time, our consultants looked into that and figured out that there are a few other things that would the business sector would benefit in such a zone. So it became large enough to be structured as a project. So we'll be looking at. So it's a project by project basis. There is always some solution around it, and it's look. MDBs are different. So we tend to be additional. We overlap to some extent, but World Bank has a different approach. They can do things what EBRD cannot. EIB is also KfW. So if it's not fitting some of us, then maybe some other can. So that's the idea. We need to be all of us additional and try to help the need which is recognized at the market. Usually it's found, especially for projects which are fairly developed and recognized. So
I try to be quick. So it's always a distinction between many cases. If it's a city administration, then bundling is indeed an idea, as you said. So the energy efficiency project could be part of a multi-sector project. If it's a utility, but a small size, then indeed we are somewhat constrained. I think it's similar for EBRD by ticket size and risk profile, because let's say credit risk is also a very important consideration. But if the project is already mature and the technical side is not the problem, just the financing side, then maybe one of the multi-beneficiary investment loans that the EIB has set up with a commercial bank in your country or in the country at hand could be a solution, because there are credit lines that go from the commercial bank to the final beneficiary for very small projects like 5 million, 3 million. And then finally, I think these are the cases. When there's a technical need, one nice example I can give you is the city of Udea in Romania, where I mentioned Jaspers, but I haven't mentioned the project advisory support unit, which is located at the EIB and which has let's say advisory activities in Romania, Bulgaria and Greece. And the main purpose of this service is to help promoters get project to a quality level that they can draw EU grant funding. So it's to help prepare and help implement projects, thereby improving the grant absorption by the member state. But so far it only works in 3 EU member states.
Thank you. Very important point. So all of the IFIs have some sort of a project preparation kind of facility or support where they could also support with the feasibility studies and stuff. So I think the message that we are hearing as well from Hubert is just to really contact the IFIs and also ask for that support if that's available for the project preparation too. Okay, I want to take very quickly, because we started late, 3 more questions, rapid fire. We collect them and then we go to the panelists. So, let's start with you. Here, gentleman here in front.
Thank you so much for this great panel. I apologize to everyone for taking a precious time for a coffee break. And I will try really to be very sharp with a question. I'm truly amazed how the North Macedonia exacerbate the energy transition processes, especially with regard to upcoming huge deal. And my question is related maybe primarily to Mr. Kostovski. What would you propose, what would you recommend for the neighboring countries and other countries from region to be more proactive and to finally use that golden opportunity in proper way? Thank you.
Thank you. Then maybe, Marina, if you could get the online question.
Yes, so it's a quite specific question, but what are the chances to get a loan for a utility company that from ash and slag makes a useful civil engineering materials. So would it be possible to get such a loan?
Okay, lady at the back.
Thank you. I'm Alexandra Kikovic from UNDP Montenegro, and I just wanted to reflect to say that I'm happy that UNDP was mentioned actually, specifically in regard to Montenegro, but also we are present in other countries of the region and Ukraine too. So just wondered, actually wanted also to praise what was in the core of the discussion today, the human capital development and human-centered approach, which is a kind of, let's say, comparative advantage of UNDP when it comes to designing and implementing concrete actions on the ground. And my question is actually related to, I mean, you can pick up whoever wants to respond. When it comes to building trusts in the process of just transition, quick win results are needed. That is something that we've learned from exchange visits, not only with the countries in this platform, but also other countries. And people on the ground, as we said, human-centered approach, and people on the ground need to see the tangible results in the near future so as they can believe in the process that is going to last for long. And we all know that we live in the region that is in transition for ages now. So this is just my question to you. What do you think can be done? So we are always going back to energy projects, but we need to focus on community and area-based development projects. And so this is something that is critical for the local population to still believe in the process and to retain in the core regions in the future.
Thank you for that. I'll ask panelists to be very, very brief. So I think, Stefan, if you could take the first question on the neighboring countries and how they can be proactive, and then I'll ask Nevena to take the third. I think we'll skip the online question because it is rather specific, and I would really advise to just go and discuss very specifically with specific MDBs.
Yes, so the answer is you need to work on the documents, on the ambitions. I know that, for instance, Bosnia is working on that, and my colleague Anna is directly working with your country. You're working in the neighboring countries as well. Pretty much all of the NDBs are trying to put this together. So the first and foremost is a good, strong ambition with clear dates that politicians don't step down from and try to forget. So once you have that, so then the plans come in, and then you just starting to develop the project, and that's it. And money follow. Everything is in parallel. So the first step is essentially this next 6 months. Most of the countries, the NCPs that are doing, the others that are doing to the just transition roadmaps, to get this done, to try to make it as ambitious as possible, strong as possible, bulletproof. So because it will be scrutinized a lot. Energy Community Secretariat, all the MDBs, all the NGOs, everybody will look at those in details, and we are happy to support them, my colleagues especially.
Thank you, Stefan, for opening your deep pockets for the transition in the region. Over to Nevena on the quick wins.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alexandra, for this brilliant question. Quick wins are scarce, we have to say, especially in transitioning, but one of the most important opportunities is the building sector. The building sector has the capacity to absorb a lot of workers. With very short-term reskilling, you can get them to work on energy efficiency. So you have a double win here. On one hand, you find new jobs for the workers, and on the other hand, you get energy efficiency implemented much more quickly. So this is the quickest win that you can implement within 6 months, for example. And then the next quick win is startup companies. Startup companies will also absorb some of the workers, but this takes a bit more time, and it takes very good planning. So you need to be able to plan what is relevant for the region that you are working on, in order to how do you call this? Sorry, in order to find how to design the startup mechanism. So it needs to be different for every region. But these are the two quickest wins. The others take a bit more time, and are also in the energy sector, because we spoke about things that are not supposed to be in the energy sector. A slower one, but very needed, is agriculture and waste management. Thanks.
Let me add to the list circular economy projects, and what can work as well is some voluntary government action of relocating some public service into a most affected region. Maastricht has done it, one of the most successful coal transitions in history. Netherlands has done it by creating a UN university, UNOMERIT. So in this sense, does two things. It creates jobs, but it sends a signal to the region that you guys matter, and guys and ladies matter for us. You're not somewhere at the end of the world. You're in the heart of government planning. Just to complete the list.
Thank you so much, Hubert. And with that, we would like to conclude this panel, because I know everyone is eager for a cup of coffee. It would be very helpful if we could pull up the drawing on the screen. Wow, this looks very rich with a lot of checklists. All right, sorry, it's really hard to see. Okay, so a lot of the needs to close the financial gaps, a lot of the needs for grants and planning. Okay, we got the circular economy in there and all of the project types, which I think is really helpful, and I think quite a lot of emphasis as well on the level of ambition in order to mobilize the financing, which I think is something that strongly came out on the panel. So I encourage you to grab a cup of coffee and take a closer look at this, because I think it's quite a beautiful drawing. So let's build on that and let's carry on the joint work together. Thank you so much.